baby, listen to the speaker. No matter what, just say the word. Loving all I see.
Perswayable. What's going on, everybody? So, today we're going to talk about the Hunter ranking list. You guys have been waiting for this for a while. So, a few things. First and foremost, I want to thank you all. We're almost at 1,000 follows on Twitch, and that is tremendous progress. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I get to play with y'all every single day. I get to critique you and help you improve. I literally get hundreds of messages of people saying that their gameplay has been improving based on the YouTube and Twitch, and I want to tell you that that is really the most self-fulfilling feeling that I can even articulate. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Make sure that y'all come by sometime. Sometimes I'm funny, most of the time I'm not. How did I do? Was that a good pitch? I'm trying to work on it. All right. Anyways, so we're going to talk about the Hunter tier list. So before we get into this, one last thing, because some people don't know who I am, and that's probably why you live happy lives. So I'm sorry that you have ventured towards my life. My name is Perswayable. I was ranked first overall in the U.S. for EXP, top 10 survivor. Currently, I'm top 30, I think. I haven't been playing too much. And a top 75 hunter on the U.S. server. This ranking is based on U.S. We don't have the Hell Ember buff yet, so just like bear with me on that. We don't have, and we don't have Black and White just got released, and we don't have enough data on that. However, I will talk about Black and White at some point within the video, and we'll try to address that the best that we can. I want to give a shout out to Nori, to Remy and Nori, to Liv. Liv came up with some great data, and I'm going to show you that as well. And this is based on data from the Chinese servers, what the top 100 players are playing in terms of top 100 hunters, and what we're also seeing in competitive gameplay. So, what I should say is that S, A, and B, again, are the only ones we see in top competitive gameplay. Now, there's the same thing with the Survivor tier list. Everybody always has this, well, I think this character is higher or whatever. Just know that regardless of that opinion, we don't see those characters in high tiers, right? So these are the only characters we see in high tiers. And I have raw data from Liv where I can show that. So first and foremost, I already said first and foremost. Clown, best hunter in the game. I mean, I think we all understand this, that he has the biggest hitbox, right? A lot of new players that you really should learn how to play the Clown. Right now, the top players, at least in the Chinese server, top 3 use Clown. Typically, the top 3 in the U.S., maybe give or take, use Clown as well. He's got the biggest hitbox. He has attachments on the ground. There's really his biggest tactic is using those attachments on the ground early game, trying to find a propeller right away. So for those that don't know, if he puts the propeller, he has an infinite dash. It never runs. And emulator and PC users have a significant advantage because what they can do is they can just take these ridiculous turns that us mobile players can't really utilize. That's why PC players, when they play emulators, they have a significant advantage over those who do not use computer players, or rather those who do not use computers. So with that being said, I think most of us understand why he's the best player, but again, he uses the propeller early game, and he runs around, and he runs to the weakest spot of the map, typically, and he's also garnering all of the items on the ground. And that's really important, because he needs to make sure that he has an arsenal for that first hit. That first hit is extremely important for the Clown. A lot of the times, the strategy is, I'm going to dash, I'm going to pick up all the items on my way. If the Clown hits you with his first propeller, you messed up. You didn't properly position yourself. And a very common tactic against him is making sure that you're always near a pallet. Some cipher machines, you can continue decoding because there's a pallet right there. Others, there's not. And the argument is, should I use a window? Well, you got to be careful because emulator users can keep going back and forth. So really, it's about early game positioning and making sure he does not get that first charge hit on you. If you allow him to not get that first charge hit on you, it's going to be significantly more difficult for him to hit you. All right. I can't edit this out. That's my dog. He's like, I want to get out of here. See the dog? He's just like, I need to get out of here. See, he positioned himself near a pallet. All right. Geisha. So, Geisha is going to be A tier. She's actually better on the computer as well. In terms of mobile devices, We're seeing a lot less of Thief being played now that Perfumer is being used, the Magician is being used, and Coordinator is being used, the Mechanic is being used. Thief we do see quite a bit, but we are starting to see his production a little bit lower now. You're no longer really having as many two Thief layouts like we used to have. So now we're starting to see more diversity in the game, and what I mean by more diversity is the same core characters. You can look at the Survivor tier list, but in this game now you're not having two thieves. So usually if there is a thief, that's her hard counter. It's pretty relatively simple to skill check her as well. But one of the nice things about her is that she can get through those pallets really well. There's a lot of different builds for her, so you never really know what to expect with her. Some people do build all the way up north. Some people build towards Berserk. Those are different personas. So she is, without a doubt, A tier. And I'm going to show you some raw data in a little bit to show that she's still being used in top gameplay. Now, let's get to B. B. Feaster is arguably the hardest person to kite when he is fed. So the key to beating Feaster, that's my dog again. That's a little creepy, right? The key to beating Feaster is making sure you beat him early game. Now, there's a few variations of how you can play Feaster. Some people actually use the Patroller, because if you can connect with the Patroller, not only does it increase the presence of Feaster, right, but you can also use it more than Blink. That's why some people use Patroller more than Blink with the Feaster build, although we see Blink quite considerably more. Feaster is even more deadly on the computer because it's a lot easier to place the tentacles than what you can on the mobile device. But in the end, the reason why he is B, and I have some footage where I kite the top 15 hunter with a gardener for 5 ciphers. And it had nothing to do with the hunter. It was a good hunter. It's just that he doesn't really have that much versatility in the beginning of the game. So really, your strongest asset against Feaster is beating him early game. Alright? Why that matters is because if he gets his maximum presence and he can use the curse mark on you, it's almost game over every time. He puts up a tentacle. When you start running towards him, he'll put the curse mark on you, and then at that point he can either hit you first, right, and then let the tentacle finish you off. It's considerably easier for him to block the rocket chair, and it's easier for him to kill the coordinator when he has maximum presence. Now, when he doesn't have maximum presence, it gets a little bit more difficult. Typically, the strategy that people use is they put up a tentacle. They'll hide behind a wall, right, because he's tall, so he can see over barriers pretty well. And that way, when the coordinator comes, she can't use her flare gun. And then he tries to hit with the tentacle. If he hits with the tentacle, he can come and try to finish off with a basic attack. However, if he hits with a basic attack, he can't use the tentacle, right? Because he doesn't have the curse mark, and he's recuperating with the attack recovery. So he is super dangerous if he's fed. If you have anybody who makes any sort of mistakes, it will penalize the entire game. So he's more like a glass cannon, right? If you have people who really know how to kite and kite effectively, he's going to be very, very easy to kite, and he's not going to snowball. However, and again, if you're in tier 4, even tier 5, you're not going to see that as much. You're going to still see a lot of survivors making basic mistakes. You should be able to kite him at a minimum 130 to, not 130, a minute and 30 to 2 minutes easily. He doesn't have a gap closer like you do with the Geisha and the Clown. Now, you got to make sure that you're not just camping in a sphere radius, right? If you're in a sphere radius with that heartbeat, there's going to be a tentacle that spawns. So you need to be careful about your positioning as well. That occurs early game. However, even with insolence, you should be able to survive a long time, but you also need to continuously be careful, because if Feaster does have insolence, even if you kite him for a long time, he can get that max presence just based on a few hits, as well as how he uses the Patroller. And like I said, he's very dangerous. He's very dangerous with his positioning, so he can make the coordinator's job very, very difficult. Same with Clown, right? The Clown can have attack recovery speed with his attachment, and that makes it so he just uses his dash on you, hits you, and then he's back up again ready to kill a coordinator. Now, Geisha has a trick as well where she can drop up, she can go up in the air, she can drop down, sorry for the sound guys, she can swing, right, I have a video on this, and swing again. She has 2 attacks when dropping down, but that's easy for the coordinator to manage because you can use your flare gun up when the Geisha's up in the air. So with that being said, Feaster can be very dangerous, and the reason why he's down so low is because he's a lot more difficult using early game as opposed to the Geisha. And Joker is based on a little bit of probability with his attachments, but he has some pretty strong early game as well. What I will say about Feaster is that if I were to get kited hard, no, there's a different way I can phrase this. What I will say about the Feaster is that if he is fed, like I said, he's the most dangerous character in the game. Hands down. There's nobody more dangerous than him. He is really dangerous, but it's about getting there. And against top players, that's very difficult. You're not going to do it often. Okay. Look at this. I got all dressed up nice and snazzy for you. Trying to look beautiful for you. I'm ugly, so it's hard to do. Alright, let's go to the next. Now we're going to get to the Ripper. So what's nice about the Ripper is that he does have that movement speed. He has the map awareness with the fog. He can use Foggy Blade. He's going to get buffed soon regardless, but Foggy Blade is nice where you can use that area attack within the foggy area. So if he's in the foggy area and he does just a basic swing, you get that area attack, right? A lot of veterans will do their best to avoid that. He does have, like I said, that movement speed. His attack radius isn't really that great. But once he's fed as well, he can get a little dangerous with his invisibility. But at the end of the day, he doesn't really have that strong of a defense. He doesn't have a defense like the Feaster does if he's fed. He doesn't really have a gap closer other than his speed. And that speed requires that presence unlock. So again, if you kite him in the beginning, you don't really have too much of a gap closer. Once he's fed, he's able to go invisible without the fog every 15 seconds or so and really get that movement speed bonus. That's his gap closer, but it takes time to get. Right? The Clown pretty much almost has it right away with the right attachments and the correct attachment use. The Geisha has her dash as well. And now, although she doesn't dash as fast, she can still put some distance, and some close distance. And the good thing about the Geisha is she also has that that psychological game where sometimes she doesn't even dash, right? Because if she dash and you check her, it slows her speed down. So sometimes what she'll do is just run towards you as you're constantly looking back, and it slightly slows down your movement. And especially if Geisha uses Hunt, after 10 seconds, she's going to get that movement speed. Feaster, again, and I'm just constantly going down the list again. I'm trying to do a compare and contrast. With the Feaster, what you really have going on here, again, is that once he's fed, he's super dangerous, right? But he needs to be fed. It's the same thing with the Ripper. He's relatively easy to kite. Now, a lot of people say, how do I kite him? You kite him by moving. Constantly move. Use your area that you can. Transition. Use your pallets. Tight kite. Don't use your pallets too soon. I have tutorials on this, but he's not that dangerous at all. He's really not that dangerous whatsoever. Let's get to D. We got Spider Queen, and we got Hell Ember. So, if anything, I would say this is the most controversial out of the list. So Spider Queen is awful, right? She's really not that good. You can't use her spider webs in tight knit areas. You can try to set traps. That takes time. People are decoding. If you set traps, you're allowing other people to put distance between you and them. If I know you're setting traps in the ruin and I can hear that, I'm going to start transitioning to the next spot of the map. Veterans have that map awareness, right? We're not just going to stick to the same spot if I see you just putting all these traps down, right? She has some good defense in terms of her ability to guard a rocket chair based on her traps as well. So I'll give her that. That's really good. But early game, she's super easy to kite. She doesn't have a gap closer. And even her second skill, which shoots out a web, is not permissible on some of the best kiting areas of the entire map. Think of Sacred Hospital. I mean, inside those ruins to the right of the small hut, she can't use her ability. And it also takes a while for it to shoot. You have that 1 to 2 second, and a lot of survivors are looking behind them. Her Volton speed is also awful, and she doesn't have the same reach over the window like, let's say, the Geisha or the Joker does. So, with that being said, she's a very low-tier character. We don't see her in high tiers. We don't see Ripper in high tiers. I haven't seen Ripper in over a month in high tiers, and usually that's if somebody's joking. Same with Spider Queen. Hell Ember. So we do not have the Hell Ember buff. Alright, so over here in the US, we do not have the Hell Ember buff. Again, super easy to kite in the beginning. However, if you feed him a little bit, he's able to use his puppets. He can use that for the map awareness. that allows him some flexibility to move around and to come back and really prevent a rescue. But he doesn't really have any gap closers. In fact, his gap closing is technically worse than the Spider Queen, although he can throw his puppet. That is one option that he can try to use, but it doesn't really work too well. And you got to use your puppet sparingly. You don't always just want to keep using them over and over, because sometimes you have to reposition them, so to speak. So well, that's not necessarily true, but anyways, Hellhammer, not that good. Super easy to kite, no gap closing whatsoever besides the puppet throw, I guess, and no defense really either. Now, when I say no defense, what I mean by that is that, yeah, he's able to come back, but the coordinator can still do her job relatively easy. She can just get there and use her flare gun. It's not like the Spider Queen where you're gonna have webs. The problem is with the Spider Queen, when she's putting those webs down, those traps, it's still taking time, right? She doesn't have a defense like the Feaster does when he's fed. He doesn't have a defense like the Clown does with the double shot or the reduced attack speed. So he's really not that dangerous all around. And now the worst hunter in the game is Gamekeeper, for sure. Super, super easy in every caliber. Has less than the Hellhammer, has less than the Spider Queen. So early game, you shouldn't be dying from this guy at all. Same thing with Hellhammer. Same thing with Spider Queen, actually. None of them you should really be dying from. But the thing with Gamekeeper is that his entire ability is based on hook. The hook is awful. The hook is better than the Cowboy's lasso, so I should probably mention that. But the speed in which it requires to cool down is just too high. So first of all, when you're going to throw a hook, it's very difficult to do that in tight areas, right? In tight areas, you have a lot of walls, you have a lot of things to work with, all right? But it's a 15-second cooldown, give or take, and it requires 4,500 presence in order for it to be a one-hit kill. So you really need to be able to get a lot of hits. You need to be able to get a lot of downs in order to activate that one-hit kill. So for those who don't know, for Gamekeeper, your first presence unlock is the hook itself, and then you have to get all the way to 4,500 presence in order to unlock the one-shot kill with the hook. It's just too much. The Gamekeeper is not good. You're not getting hits like you are with a Feaster, I guess, or even with a Geisha or with a Clown. It's super hard for him to get one guy down, even with Blink. You have to use Blink with this guy. Same with Hellhammer. So it's just not worth it. And then when you're using your hook, you're slowing your own speed down. So if you miss the hook, which is very likely, even with pros, if you will, no pros use the Gamekeeper, and then you just did yourself a disadvantage because you allowed that person more time to get away. And what's unfortunate again is that 15-second cooldown. You use the hook, it takes an entire season for your hook to come back. So it's not like you can even spam it. It's not like it's the Geisha's dash, or it's not like the Clown's. So this is the character tier list. I'm trying to keep this video small, shorter. I know it's 18 minutes, or it's 19 or 20 minutes, but my survivor list was 50 minutes. I don't got time to do that today. And I also want to show you guys one thing. I'm super excited to show you this. So, how was this formed? Well, this was formed in a manner that I told you guys before, where we talked to some of the best hunters in the game. I'm a top tier player, so this is what we see in top tier plays. But Liv, L-I-V-H, did a really good job. And what she did is she collected data on the top 100 Chinese hunters. And we wanted to really look at what they're using as well, right? I didn't want it to only be what we're seeing in the US in top competitive gameplay. But when we looked at the data, it actually follows everything that we have here. So our sample size is 52. Out of the top 100, we weren't able to get contact with either 48 or we weren't able to see their record, okay? But out of this, Joker clearly takes it. That's why he's S. And then you actually have a little bit more Geishas than Feasters. So it shows you that Geisha in top competitive play is still being used on both servers, more so on the Chinese now. But you have S, A, and then B, and then you'll have one Soul Weaver, which I was very surprised with, and one Ripper. So Ripper is definitely better than Soul Weaver. And the Soul Weaver, that kind of took us by surprise, but that would kind of fall in with where we're looking. I know that there's actually another Ripper player that we weren't able to collect data on. However, I didn't want to presume that they still use the Ripper, but I've seen their videos and we weren't able to get their data. But they definitely used the Ripper, but for the sake of methodology, I wasn't able to do that. What's interesting too is we see black and white up there. So black and white, as you guys know, just got released on this server, and we don't have enough data right now for me to give you a proper rating on him. So I'm not going to do that. We'll probably come out with one in a couple of weeks when we have more data to see how he's being played on the U.S. and but he's up there. We got 6 on there, so it's going to be interesting to see if black and white is going to be a B tier. Maybe he's even A tier. Remember, there's 48 that we can't see, so we don't know what the distribution of that 48 is. But hopefully, we see some sort of pattern, some sort of pattern here where we can really kind of make some sort of presumption that black and white will probably be between B or maybe even A. It's going to depend on complexity. It's going to depend on, have people been able to counter him? Well, we'll see how that goes. So I did want to show you guys the data that we also use. So in conjunction of talking to many players, as well as my anecdotal observations, what we see objectively as well on high tier matches, as well as what we see with the Chinese and what we're seeing with those numbers. This is your list. I hope you guys appreciate it. It took a long time to do this. And yeah, so I hope if you guys have any questions, you can come to my Discord. You can talk to me one-on-one. You can hit me up on Twitch. That's my pitch again. Or you guys can do whatever and just ask any questions. And I'll make sure to put a link to this image so you can have them. All right, guys, you guys have a good day now. Take care.